Well, thank you for hopping on today with me to do this podcast. Kajina, welcome. I'm excited to do this podcast. I'm excited to pick your brain. I'm excited to talk about whatever it is we talk about. We always go the distance on our conversation, so might as well film it and put it up, right?
Agree.
I'm excited. So there's lots of things that we can talk about on this podcast, right? But I thought maybe we would start off with just get right into it. Generational patterns are not a curse. I thought that would be a good starting point. I love that
Yeah,
you brought that up.
yeah, yeah,
Start talking.
yeah. So generational patterns for me, I have so many of them. My reference point as a child is only dysfunction. So I grew up in a very big family, but my the people who are older than I am, like my elder sisters, my father, my mother, my parents were not married. My father was married, but not to my mom. So, the sanctity of marriage is not something that I grew up respecting or knowing was something that you had to respect or anything of that nature. My decision to get married was around me seeing like how insecure my mother was all the time.
Mhm.
So whilst like my father did leave technically his wife, as in they separated physically, he never actually legally divorced her. So that was always hanging over my mom's head. And I just kind of observed her as a child, just always very angry, always very restless. She was always running away to somewhere, coming back, making a grand entrance. It was almost like she kept trying to kind of like validate her place in the family.
Mhm.
So it was like she would go disappear and then come back, and then she'd come back with stuff, and it's not like she abandoned us. She had her reasons for going for long periods of time, but every time she came back, it was always like she was expecting, this grand, I don't know. She's so for that, I think that I had a tendency to be restless growing up.
Mhm.
I had a tendency to be um, I wasn't very trusting of men
Mhm.
growing up. Um, I I was just very my references were just upheaval, chaos, uncertainty. Today is peaceful. What will tomorrow bring? Um, I did have a relatively good childhood in that no physical harm came to me per se. Like, I cannot say, well, I was being beaten or whatever like that. But I was definitely witness to a lot of turmoil and unrest in my family. And I also witnessed my eldest brother, who would have been my parents' first child together. So I would have witnessed him drinking and smoking heavily while as I was growing up. So he was about 20 years older than I am. And because, the family is quite big, the range of our ages are from like right now, my eldest living sibling is, I think, close to 70, half sibling. Then you have my mother's eldest daughter, who's like close to 60, I think. And there's me, who's 42. So there's quite a generational range in my immediate family, which was also tough for me at times, um, because you had, these people kind of pulling ranks, like, trying to behave like they were authority figures. And in my mind, you're not my mom, that kind of thing. So my brother, who was the heavy drinker, my father didn't drink. My mother didn't drink. So I cannot say that I ever saw them drinking. It was a different type of issue that they had. But my brother, my eldest brother, was a heavy, heavy drinker. So He was also a smoker. And every time I talk about him, I go like this because those are my memories of him. It's like he was always smoking and drinking. So there was a drink in one hand and a cigarette in another hand. And he had a favorite spot in the house, like on the patio where he'd overlook like the parking area and just kind of chat to anybody who was coming in or going out. And whilst drinking, he was always very talkative, very loud. He would get obnoxious. He would get rude sometimes. Sometimes he would become violent if like a situation escalated and he got angry enough. There were periods of I recall moments of conflict escalating to like blows between siblings. And he was just very disruptive. So whilst he was a really loved person, like he was so funny, he was so smart, he was so everything. There was a level of anxiety that accompanied his presence. So it was like, okay, it's only a matter of time before junior starts, and that was hard to watch growing up because, as I said, our age gap was 20 years. But when I was around 14, I became very close to him. So I became curious about, this person who's my brother, who has come back from university and who's an adult, a young adult. And, I want to know what the law is about and just get to know him because he's my brother. And he had stories and stories and stories about his childhood and the things that he would have witnessed between like my parents. So my parents had these phases where when my parents were much younger and they had him in the 60s, because he would have been born in the 60s. Like my mother was quite young, my father was still a young man. So apparently their relationship was even more volatile back then.
Mm.
And he would have been a direct recipient of that environment. So it's only like recently, I think I was saying to you that it occurred to me, like I understand now that I'm an adult with all the stresses of the world and I have a daughter and, I have this stressful job and I have this, the life weighs you in,
Yeah.
that I can understand like what happened to him because I could never understand why he wouldn't stop drinking. Like,
Mm.
why can't you just stop? Just stop drinking. You're killing yourself. There were periods where apparently I never witnessed it, but when he was getting very sick, and my brother's passed away, by the way. So, where he was getting very sick, like my other sister would have witnessed him bringing up like blood and stuff like that, but he wouldn't stop. And despite our pleadings, despite our just annoyance, we would hide the bottles, and it just nothing worked.
Yeah.
And this is also why I say to you that it's good if you're going into the area of men, of course, with caution, because that TikTok thing where would you prefer to be caught in the forest with a bear or a man? And
Mm-hmm.
everybody says the bear. There's a reason for that. But men are kind of overlooked when it comes to how they process their emotion or what the expectation is for the processing of their emotion. So, if as a child he would have witnessed so much unrest between his parents, then it really makes sense to me how he eventually became so dependent on alcohol to the point where he could not stop or did not stop.
Mm.
Um, I do remember him making an effort. So I'm from St. Lucia, where healthcare services for issues like mental health, addiction. Those things are almost non existent.
Yeah.
And I'm from a place where you can cure everything with alcohol. And the alcohol culture, of course, I know you were saying it's everywhere.
Yeah.
But the alcohol culture in the Caribbean is pretty is pervasive, and it's it's in everything. The lack of alternatives, the lack of like options for things that don't involve alcohol is scarce. So being surrounded by that, and he was a party person too in his 20s and so on. So the entire persona of him being maybe naturally larger than life, naturally charismatic, witty, combined with unresolved trauma over a period of years and years and years, combined with cultural um, non-support, if you will. He really was like a ticking time bomb. And there's so many men who face the pressure of not knowing how to process their thoughts and their feelings. And when I was about maybe I think it was a year before he passed away, I had experienced something with my mom. And as I got older, I started to kind of, because as children, we the way we perceive our parents is vastly different to the way we perceive our parents as adults, right?
Hmm.
Whether you become empathetic, whether you are judgmental of them, like, I can't believe you would do something like that. If I were in your shoes, I would have.
Right.
But it changes, it evolves. So as your awareness grows, I became very aware of my mother's
Mannerism.
little thing. Yeah, her little thingy things, her little,
Yeah.
I want to be careful how I refer to her, but she's a little bit on the self centralizing of self type of. I'm trying to avoid the big N word, but most people would call it narcissism. So there was that, right? I don't know what the reason for narcissism is
Mhm.
because she herself has gone through her thing, and so I just want to be compassionate when it comes to people like my mom, but I'm saying that to say that one day I called him to say, Junior, I have to tell you, I really kind of understand what you you've been saying. And I think I said something to him just about how I identify with a point of view that he may have held. And we were on the phone for 2 hours. He was just talking, recalling things that had happened to him, specific things that she had dragged him into as a child, just really unpleasant experiences. And that was when I realized that my brother was holding so much pain. He was in so much pain at this mid stage of his life in his 50s that he had never perhaps maybe even properly ventilated in a space where he felt safe, or you know it's it's hard talking about him because I'm here talking to you because I became a drinker, and that's why we're talking about generational patterns, because I didn't consider myself as having a problem when I was growing up. So I would observe him, of course. And when I started drinking alcohol in like my late teens, and I discovered the effect of alcohol, where it seems to make you confident, and it seems to make you forget, your insecurities. I decided that I was going to be a social drinker. So I was going to be a drinker.
Mhm.
And I kind of pursued or I didn't pursue the lifestyle, but I embraced a party lifestyle. So um, it wasn't excessive, I have to say. I would I would party like a regular 20-year-old at university, go out on the weekends, drink, come back, sing karaoke, to get up on a bench, just karaoke ugly type of things. This is 2002,
Mhm.
2003, 2004. So you have an idea of what the outfits look like and um, but I never thought that I had a problem.
Mhm.
So there were points later on in my life after I left university, and I was like a young adult, like maybe 25, 26. I would get little comments here and there, like, oh, you're a drinker, you're a drinker, you're a drinker. And I would always resent it to the point where I felt like I was being attacked. And I never understood why I was being scrutinized. And as far as I was concerned, I wasn't drinking any more than anyone else. Um, but now that I think about it, it had to have been something very deep within me that knew that there was a problem, or
Mhm.
that knew that there was something that I needed to address, or that I couldn't really control,
Mhm.
or that I was maybe a little bit too dependent on. And that grew because I didn't acknowledge it.
Yeah.
So when life, as it does, becomes increasingly challenging,
Mhm.
and this is why when your parents tell you, enjoy life now because life is da, 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 they are correct in many respects, because it just gets more and more challenging. You start to lose people, friendships sever, you have financial issues intercepting, you have moves intercepting. And in my case, in our case, we had the interception of a pandemic.
Mhm.
So that now, on the heels of an already kind of budding drinking problem, it just created the perfect recipe for spiraling. And the no boundaries, the no, nobody to judge you, like you're drinking in the morning, or you turning up to work drunk, because nobody can really tell because you're at home. Without those little kind of guardrails, it just spiraled. And I remember just sitting in my car once, I was still in St. Lucia at the time, and I was like, I have a problem. I need to get to a rehab or something. I need to find a rehab because I'm drinking every day. I'm I'm like, my focus is alcohol. I'm getting up to go to drink. Um, and I just became very concerned that I would find myself in a place where there was no return, like my brother, who ultimately succumbed to complications from long term heavy alcohol abuse.
Mhm.
So his liver gave way. He had cirrhosis of the liver, but he had an issue where, because of the alcohol damages like your something in your throat, where
Esophagus,
like it's the esophagus, but it's something in the esophagus that it damages, and it's it
icebox.
it can damage it beyond repair,
Mhm.
and it can rupture, or there's something that he was like, it was something in addition to the cirrhosis of the liver. So he would have these bouts of like bleeding, bleeding, bleeding out. And so this time, when he did go to the hospital, um, he went into cardiac arrest. I'm sorry to go into such detail over it, but I don't even think I've ever really spoken about his passing.
Tell it. Tell everything you want to say.
Yeah.
You have the floor.
He he um he went into cardiac arrest, And they resuscitated him, they stabilized him, um, but he was bleeding. And so I think they tried to do something where they use a tool. Now this is St. Lucia, so our medical instruments are outdated, resources are, so whatever it is that they used on him was not the most modern technique of dealing with that issue. And I think he went back into cardiac arrest, and he ultimately, the heart stopped. And that's what I remember when the doctor said, that's all I remember is her saying his heart stopped. And I remember, because we got called to the hospital, and I was a Tuesday, September 4th, your birthday. It was a Tuesday, September 4th, 2018. And they called us to the hospital to give blood. So all the while I'm thinking, oh, he's in bad shape. He's really going to need to turn his life around now. And, we're not going to take our eyes off of him, not realizing how actually badly ill he was. And so we go to the hospital, we go to the room and whatever, and they call us up and they call us in. Still, you're not thinking it's his death announcement. And all I remember is her saying, the doctor, his heart stopped. And I was like waiting, like, okay, and so where is he and how is he? And like, that was it. His heart stopped. And I mean, I'm recalling this and I'm saying, like, this was a violent death. Like, when you think about what he might have gone through. And it's because of alcohol, but it's also because of whatever it is he was going through or had gone through that he never resolved. So there was a level of chemical addiction. I think the brain, his body, I think because he drank so much and for so long, I think he would have needed medical assistance to get off alcohol, because you can actually die from alcohol withdrawal as well. So, you know, these are my references. These are my references. And what I was saying to you is that the decision to break these generational patterns that have become so a part of who you are, so interwoven with your daily life, your perception of yourself, it's almost like it's harder to decide that you're going to not become that person than it is to actually just not be that person. So I don't know if that makes sense, but it's like, because you have no other reference of identity, you're literally trying to figure out who you are outside of this. And your default, you're fighting your default every day. So you're like, okay, well, this is what I would do if I was Kajina Foster of the, Foster family. I would carry on affairs outside of my marriage. I would have multiple children. I would drink indiscriminately to the point where it compromised my health and my entire life. This is what, it's almost like this is what I'm supposed to be doing. So the decision not to do it is really, really hard. It's really hard to just, I mean, Sharon, sometimes it comes down to the way I write an email. Like, sometimes I want to behave in a way that is just my default, which is like, I don't want to care about this. I don't want to answer this. I just want to leave the office and not do anything for the week. I'm not coming back. And it's almost that way. And I've had to kind of rediscover little pieces of myself along the way. And as I have said to you, like, I discovered that I was not an angry person. So perhaps what we think is our default is not. I don't know what it is. Um, but there's a lot of unlearning that happens in your sobriety journey. And it's exhausting. It's hard. Is it worth it? Yeah, it's worth it. Um, it is worth it. Sometimes I have to say, I do question what it's all for, what is anything about, and I just try to pay attention to that little voice inside of me that is uncomfortable with the drinking version of myself. So even if I may think it's my default, there is a side to me that is like, this is not you. This is not what you want for yourself. This is not. So the breaking of the generational patterns is something that you have to decide that you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And you have and you it's almost like, okay, I'm going to, it's like doing a master's. It's like doing a going into the deciding you're going to gain muscle, lose weight, whatever. It's like you have to decide that you're doing this, and that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I I hear that. I feel like you do have to have that decision. Like you have to make that decision, right? When you poured um your brother's alcohol down, right? It's like I know that when you do that, you just piss that person off. Like you don't help them by doing that. Like I did it to my dad and he nearly flipped his lid. But he had a
Yeah.
serious problem for many years of dependency. And yeah, you do chemically start to change your brain because
Yeah.
you're now so dependent on such a mind altering substance, right? You get perma slur, you start to, permanently slur your words. You
Really.
start to shake, your body starts to physically prove it. So, my main focus is helping people make that decision, but then also pair it with a goal. Because sure, you can make the decision all damn day, right? And it's usually started by some sort of motivation, or maybe it's labeled as like a rock bottom or something
Hmm.
puts a fire under your ass big enough for you to say, okay, like I'm not doing this anymore, right? That default setting, like you're like, I don't like the default setting anymore. Like I want to be true to who I am. And what they call that is ideal self and real self, right? It's like if you were to
Mm.
go on a first date, your ideal self, orders the salad and has a glass of water, but your real self goes home and eats an entire box of
Yeah. Yeah.
down. And then that guy moves in eventually and he's looking for the girl with the salad and the water. He's not looking for the, feral creature
The
that
pigging out.
not looking for that, So a lot of people have that ideal self that they present to the world, right? I don't know if you've yet
Mm.
seen that video that I show. It's oil, the top layer, then water is the middle layer, and honey is the bottom. That top layer of honey is everyone's ideal self. Like, this is who I am.
Mhm.
But then they go
Mhm.
home, they take off their hair, they take off their nails, they rip their eyelashes
Uh,
off, they eat all the pizza. It's just like
yeah.
your true
Yeah.
nature. But if you were to show that version of the world, you're not as likable, or so we think, right? It's very hard to be so true to yourself, right? And I do like that you mentioned, your judgment towards your brother, that you were like, I don't understand why you drink. I don't understand what it is. we all have these things that start to pile on top of us, and when they don't get dealt with, alcohol seeps through all of that, and it's like it's all fine, it's great. Alcohol
Yeah.
is fun and exciting until it's not, and I hate that
Mhm.
because it really isn't fun and exciting. It's a drug. It's just like any other drug, like taking shrooms or taking Molly or taking it. You put something that alters your reality, you're going to label that as fun, because reality, you have to make it fun. You can't just like wait,
Yeah.
it's like a hoot and rally, like you just lay in your bed and like, why isn't the world fun? I'm manifesting fun but not doing anything.
And that's another thing actually. It's that like the pursuit of like having to need fun, and you need to be constantly stimulated and in the space of like, and it's like recently, like coming off of December, I joke about disappearing and stuff like that. And but the polarized tones between like December and January, it is so depressing because it's everything is like hyperbolic in December. It's like there's parties everywhere. There's like gifts, there's food, there's candy, there's music, and then January comes and it's like, oh, dry January, dry January. And you're like, oh my God, what the hell happened? And it's depressing. It's that withdrawal of like joy and gaiety, and
Yeah.
it's like,
But is it
and
actually
you
joyful?
it's
Because I sat
not.
there and reflected with Lou, and I told myself, I'm like, we're vetoing holidays next year. I don't give a shit. And he's like,
Yeah,
you don't have to ask me twice. He's like, literally, the only reason I ever do any of these stupid holidays is because
it's
you.
because of you. Yeah,
I'm like,
it's
I
so
don't.
much pressure.
It's an overload on your system, right? That we're having fun, but too much of anything is going to give you the reverse, right? I made a joke today.
Yeah,
I was driving. I was like, "Oh, I got my running bib for the 5K tomorrow. I bought a new pair of glasses so I could be official, and I bought myself a juice." I'm like, "Look at all this pain. I mean, all this pleasure dipping that I'm doing." I'm like, "Pleasure, pleasure."
yeah,
And then I hit
yeah.
traffic. And I was like, I knew that the pain was coming somewhere in this mix, right? As much pleasure as
Mm,
you get, somewhere there's going to be pain. So many of us
mhm.
are dipping into that pleasure center, right? Wanting instant gratification, wanting fun, not wanting to be bored, not wanting to be uncomfortable. But all that pleasure dipping, it actually makes you so much more miserable. Whereas if you were to say,
Yeah,
okay, I do have a holiday party tonight, but I'm gonna wake up and make sure I go on a run, despite if I know I'm gonna eat like shit. So many people are like, I
yeah,
eat like shit, so what's the point of the run? The point of the run is to care for your, primal needs. You need to move,
yeah.
you need to feed it good food, even if you're dumping in a bunch of ho-hos and Twinkies and bullshit.
But
Um,
yeah, I get it. Yeah, I get it. It's just, it's not for the aesthetic, it's for you. It's, so many people exercise just for the aesthetic, but exercise is actually just for you. It doesn't have to be because you want to burn your food, or you want to, that's disordered eating. That's another thing that I went
it's a how you label it, right? Like if you're working out all the time, you're not as likely to stay consistent with that. But if you're moving your body, there's not as much pressure to get an hour or 45-minute workout in. You're like, I moved my body. Like one day I just jumped on the trampoline for 5 minutes. I'm moving my body is my you gotta like work out. But I don't say
through.
work out because I know the verbiage and the tonality.
Mm,
With
mhm,
I'm not
mhm,
on a diet, I'm eating better quality food for my health. And it
mhm,
going further. So when I'm presented an option of two things, I'm like, okay, like both of them are relatively bad, but this one's better for me. So I'm going to choose this
mhm.
one. Sure, it's not like perfect. You go from eating like December, all those like holiday foods, and then you see everybody go to like kale and like carrots, and I'm like, that kale and carrots diet you're on, you're not going to go
Yeah,
the distance. And then people end up giving up and wondering why they're on this constant cycle, because you're not changing your relationship with food. You're not changing your relationship with alcohol. You're not changing your relationship with, you know,
yeah,
phone even. It's the
yeah.
things that make you feel good, right? You have to change your relation to it. So many people eat to live, or was it live to eat? or is it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's live to eat, not eat
rather
to
than
live. You should,
rather than
yeah.
to live. And it's just like people are, this the way that our food system is, here, at least in America, it's just processed bullshit, chemicals, right? Like I just got off the phone with my mom. She had the weight loss surgery. She's lost weight, she's plateaued, and I just asked her the simple questions like, "Are you eating late again?" Yes. Like, what
Mm,
does your breakfast look like? She's like, "Well, I have like an avocado and some cheese." I'm like, "Okay, well, you need to be eating protein." She's like, "Well, every time I eat
mm,
protein, I can't like keep eating." I'm like, "That's because your stomach is full. That's what you want." So you
mm-hmm,
can't. And it's just
mm-hmm.
learning the basic things. And we know this.
Uh,
Everybody knows what we should be doing. We just don't do it because it's not fun. So when you
yes,
change your
yes.
mind that I'm not doing things because they're fun, I'm doing things because they're necessary and necessary for
Mm-hmm,
my happiness and mental health. I think it's
mm-hmm,
striving for happiness that fucks us all up, right? Because when I was drinking, I didn't see a problem with it. My dad had a problem. I didn't have a problem. Like, Dad, why don't
mm-hmm.
you stop? Like, I'm just
Exactly.
fun. But I wasn't.
Yes.
When I started going from, and it was quick too. I liked it immediately. I was like, oh, if I drink this, like I black out. Like I think I blacked out my junior year of high school. So I realized it was a
Mm.
problem when I stopped like taking sips of my drink as a later adult, past the like you're young and stupid and you black out because you don't know how to drink.
Yeah,
I got to the
yeah.
end where like I know how to drink, responsibly. But I would always overdo it because I liked that I gotta check out, whether it's, my mind, my reality, my childhood, my environment,
Absolutely.
it was just
Absolutely.
easier. And then I started to associate people liked me because I drank, right? And the people who didn't like me
Mm,
when I drank weren't my people. The people who
mm,
liked me when I
mm,
drank were my people. I'm like, they get me, like the real person.
mm,
Oh, give me a minute. I need to have a drink and then I'll feel like myself again. Like you tell yourself
mhm.
all of these lies and you start to believe them. And this is why
Yeah.
beliefs are so important. Like, what is your true belief about alcohol, right? Oh, it's just harmless fun, or it helps my confidence. It helps me, and it does, right? It does make you a confident person temporarily, though. It's not actual confidence because when you start to drink, you're just like,
And then what do you even do? Like if you were to look at a recording of yourself when in that mode where you're confident, I
yeah,
mean, half the time you're cringing at like, why were you talking that way? Why were you screaming that way? Why were you on top of the table? Why were you like, it's like, no.
yeah.
So really, it's not like,
It's not actually
I
fun.
no, it's not accurate. It's not, you're not actually confident. Like,
I'm
I
more.
remember I used to get up, because I liked dancing, and I used to get up on the stage at this place I used to go to. So there was like a stage, and I used to get up on the stage by myself and dance by myself like a crazy person. But it was because of the alcohol. I don't think I would have done it if I wasn't drinking. I don't know.
Mhm.
I don't know if that's somebody, like, if I was really somebody who enjoyed being this, making a spectacle of herself. I don't know. Like, now that I think about it, it could have just been me, being 20.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I do recall I had this like ritual where I would drink, and my alcohol, my the drinks that I drank back then too were pretty mild. And when I remember the progression, so I used to drink a drink called Smirnoff Ice.
Oh,
I'm sure you've heard of it. It's, yeah,
is
it was like juice,
yeah, it's
but
like
it was,
juice.
yeah, but it was,
5%.
yeah, 5%.
Yeah.
So it was strong enough where if I drank five of them,
Mhm.
right away I could get like the desired buzz, and I would be fine. So I back then would that was my thing. Then I progressed to like rum cream, and then I realized rum cream had like a lot of calories. I was like, okay, I have to stop with the rum cream. Then I was like, okay, well, let me do the wine. And wine is calories, and I'm gaining weight. And I was like, okay, well, they say vodka is, the best alcohol to drink for like your figure.
It's
But
like,
vodka is 40 proof.
mhm.
Vodka is 40 proof.
If
So
just
how is it healthier? What
Yeah.
is 40 proof?
Well,
How? It's
that's what I said about tequila. I was like, it's agave. So it's better for you. It's less processed, and The Rock drinks it. That's literally what I told myself. I'm like, The Rock drinks it. Yeah, you took a picture by what is supposed to be The Rock. I didn't look like no
Madame
Dwayne Johnson. I'm
Tussauds.
like, who is that? You're like, that's The Rock. I'm like, no, it ain't. That is not him. That's an imposter.
Madame, Madame Tussauds.
It's
Yeah.
the progression
Yeah.
of it. It gets there, right? You go from like having
Yeah.
cocktails with friends, having, drinks neat, where there's no extra bullshit, to having wine, to having like the next thing. It's just the
It
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 rapid
never
it,
stays. Never stays.
and then
It
you start drinking
always.
at home by yourself.
Oh, so this is the thing. So I remember my brother again. He would sit there by himself and drink. So I remember I used to be like, you are drinking by yourself. Or like I would give him a hard time. And we had that kind of banter between us because I think we also had a lot of similarities, and I think he liked talking to me and I liked talking to him. And then he would say, "Yeah, just wait till you realize that it's cheaper and easier to drink at home."
Be dropping knowledge bombs because they're right. You don't gotta, and because you end up buying people drinks, they buy the round, you buy the next
Yeah,
round. It adds up, and you're essentially
yes,
paying for like your own death. You talked about
yes,
how your brother had
yes,
cirrhosis of the liver.
yes.
Not too long ago, I think like 2 days ago, my mom asked for my dad's death certificate. I never saw it. I never looked at it. I knew it was alcohol related, but part of me was never able to like actually look at it, until I had to send it to my mom. She like needs social security or whatever. But
Mhm.
cause of death on his thing was pulmonary,
Pullman, uh-huh.
yep, and then non-traumatic upper gastral and hemorrhage, and then alcohol liver cirrhosis, and then they did a biopsy.
Wow.
And you're talking about that thing in his throat.
Yeah,
'Cause my dad
yeah,
also started coughing up blood, so that's your esophagus, but it also the alcohol affects, everything that it touches, and it affects, like some drugs don't affect every organ in your body. Alcohol is liquid, okay? So it affects every organ, including your skin. This is why you age quicker. Your brain, it shrinks, and then why they start coughing up that blood is because the stomach is this the stomach lining, there's irritation, and then they have the throat linarcs, but it's basically called the voice box, and then your esophagus. So the whole entire thing. And then those are the symptoms of throwing up blood. And apparently he had been throwing up blood for many of days, prior to his death. So I think when he had called me 2 days prior to his death, which ironically, was St. Patrick's Day. We are Irish, and it's the luck of the Irish. And I'm like, I think that that's the most unlucky thing that could have happened. But it would be he would leave this earth in a very annoying way because that was my drinking day. That was my favorite drinking day. And
I
I was like,
see.
and now I can't drink on that day because I'm like I'm always gonna associate to him. And I remember the first year I did drink and I cheersed, like an asshole. I was like, "Cheers, Dad!" And I'm like taking the shot, and I'm like I'm literally continuing to do what literally killed him.
Yeah, yeah.
The next day was Lou's birthday, and I'm big into science, and I felt like that was like my dad's way of exiting and saying, Lou, take over, take care of my daughter. And what beats me up is my dad could have met Lou, but I was so embarrassed of my dad that I didn't
Mm,
I didn't let him meet Lou. I didn't want him to ruin it, to, scare him off or whatever. But now that's like one of my biggest regrets is not have letting him meet him. And it's like you can't change your regrets. They're there. I wish I could have
mm,
done it differently, but you just didn't do it differently. I wish I would have been kinder. But through these experiences, the thing that gets hard about life, like you said, to me, I feel like it gets harder because you have a choice in life and you make the crossroad. You either choose right or you choose wrong, and whatever you choose, it's going to lead to a series of other choices. You don't know if it's going to be a fortune or misfortune, but when you
mm.
look back at your life and you reflect, right, you look back and you're like, I kind of regret some of those things that I did or how I said it, or I wish I could have but you can't. So you have to just like
But then
learn.
it's like growth, isn't it? Like in a way, like regretting stuff is a sign of growth. Like it just came to me, like because I look back on some of the things that I did and said, like when I was even 27, where I thought I was, the ripe old age of 27. I'm grown now. And I still like behave like a child at 27 because I uninvited him to my wedding for that reason. And I literally said, "Do not come to the wedding." So that was also something when he passed away, people who were around him, and he would have passed away. Well, what 10 years after, 9 years after we got married. So he was still hurt about that. He
Yeah.
was still hurt that, and he used to call me baby sister because I'm his youngest sister, and baby sis. And oh my gosh, every time I think I'm okay, it's like I don't know what it's weird. Grief is weird because he passed away in 2018. I don't think I had an immediate response to his death aside from the tears and the planning of the funeral was like just hard to watch my nieces plan it um and then every now and then, like a wave of emotion comes up. And when I talk about him, especially, I realize there's so much longing there still. So he, I uninvited him to my wedding. So when I look back on it, like you were saying, like, there were certain things that you had done in that moment. I can tell you, I know exactly why you did it.
Mhm.
I know exactly why you did it because it's like that you do want better for yourself, right? And there you had this person who you perceived as being worth something. Lou is something that is, you value him, you respect him, you speak so highly of him. He's a great guy, right? I've never met him, and I feel like I know him.
Mhm.
So it's like there's this part of you that identifies with what you want to be,
Yeah.
and then there's a part of you is like, but this is who I am, and then it's like, because if this is my brother, if this is my father, then this has to be who I am, and I want to hide this part of myself because I don't want. So
I do
it's that maybe goes back to the ideal versus the
feel so.
real.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I
100%.
mean,
Well put.
I understand, and then what I sometimes feel about regret is just like try to reframe regret like it's a sign that you're growing because now you realize that maybe that was not something that you you could have done something differently, and now if you were in that situation you would do it differently.
Mhm.
So you've grown,
Yeah.
and that's how I try to look at it because you really cannot do anything about the past, except try to not repeat it. So
And that's what you see that happens that is sad is where, life does happen and people don't learn. That to me is, the
yeah,
misfortune to follow the regret. And then you hear these people, oh, been pro if I didn't tear my ACL like 20 years ago.
yeah,
And you are right about the, real self. When I first met Lou, I was still very much 120% still figuring out who the fuck I even am.
mm,
And I was so embarrassed of my dad, but forever I was embarrassed of him because he was constantly out of pocket. But then I reflect
mm.
back now and there has been growth. One, I wouldn't treat somebody the way that I treated him, but then also to let, somebody else pass judgment over me because of someone who is in close proximity, not something that would happen to me.
Exactly. That's something else I learned too. Like, there's no reason to be ashamed of anybody that you are related to or who is in your life, because if anybody else does not have compassion or kindness towards that person, then you don't need to be around that person. So, Philbert actually never. That was one of Philbert's most winning qualities as well for me. He never seemed to judge me or my family. So every time I felt like anxious about bringing him around, I would observe him in the environment to make sure he was okay, because it's not for the faint of heart. And he would just be like, you'd see, okay, he's taking it in. And then he would have like a couple questions, and then cool, move on. That's it. That's it. He embraced everybody, everything, without judgment, to the point where sometimes he would have to talk me out of like feelings that I was having, or like thoughts, and like, "Oh, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna cut that person out," and then it's just like, you sure you want to do that, and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Your moral compass. He's like, no, 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 just stay.
Yeah, he's somebody that didn't grow up in a traumatic household.
Yeah.
So it's nice to have that external guide. Like, okay, this is what it's supposed to look like. Follow that. Follow that. Go in that direction.
That's what I think that you and I both have in common. Is like
Yeah.
you had a very, I don't like to say easy because he had his own challenges, but his
Mhm.
challenges, and I don't like to compare because, my life was my life and his life was his life and we grew up differently. But of course, a thought has crossed my mind. I'm like, what if Marielos and Luis had raised me? Like, what? How would I have turned out? Like if I had been in that, normal or more normal than, shotguns being pointed at your face and your mother and your sister and like drinking and
Yeah.
heads being bashed into
Yeah.
walls and like plates flying. Normal. He's like, I got
Yeah.
lectured for 2 hours. I'm like, I would have taken that over getting my ass beat, but hey, you know, he offers me the stability that I never had. So yeah, when it was come down to that point to like, oh, I can introduce him to my dad, I was like, absolutely not. I'm like, my
Mm-hmm.
dad is he's a hot mess. But like I
Mm-hmm.
always loved him. Now looking back, I'm like, I think him and Lou would have been, best friends.
Absolutely.
Gotten
Absolutely.
along just fine. And I
Um,
just got too in my head that it mattered and it didn't. And that's what I think we do a lot of the time. We tell ourselves things matter when they really don't. Like if I were to be on my deathbed right now, does this matter? No. So then do it,
no.
follow through, like push through and, just being more of your authentic self. I mean, I have found more of myself, one being with Lou because he came in with a weed whacker. He got rid of all my friends. He's like, shitty friends.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's
Mm-hmm.
not that
Mm-hmm.
he makes my choices, but he brought
No, I
awareness.
understand.
I was like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, this person only does call me for the. Oh yeah, you're right. Like
Mm-hmm.
he's like, you want to elevate yourself, then you need to elevate yourself, your
Mm-hmm.
circle and your environment. So he taught me a lot about myself, and I'm very thankful for him because had it not been for him, I wouldn't, have understood the reality that it is I'm living now because it would have been foreign. I thought I was going to be not that there's anything wrong with being a server. I think it's a great job, but I thought that I would have been a server the rest of my life. Like I didn't go to college. I barely graduated high school. I knew that I was smart, but I didn't believe that I was smart. So there's
Mm-hmm.
difference between knowing and believing. I was like, I know I'm smart, but I don't know where I'm smart, how to apply something.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But the other day
Mm-hmm.
when you're like, you're beautiful, you're intelligent, I'm like, Kajina, stop flirting with me. I mean, but when you said the word intelligent, it like
It's
my
very hard.
I was like, intelligent.
Really?
Like, how does that make me feel? Because that has never been like a compliment that has been given to me. So I just sat there and was giddy and I was like, I am intelligent, but it felt good to hear it, right? But it felt even better to believe it. I'm like, I am intelligent. Like,
That's crazy, because the only reason I never said it before is because I was like, well, this goes without saying. Like I would think something, you would say something, and I would be thinking very, very smart, very intelligent, so I'd be hearing the thoughts in my head, and I'm just like kind of responding to you. But absolutely, emotional intelligence, like everything on, like, yeah,
well, yeah, it just felt good.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Why?
yeah, yeah.
We think these thoughts about people, and I'm very like vocal because I know that, you know, I I love to hear compliments. I think anybody does, right? But there was a point in my life where I needed it, and it was like
Mm,
desperate. Now I'm like, if it
mhm.
happens, it's great. But I feel like
Yeah, yeah.
us should strive to give compliments what did you say? Like to give credit where it's due or something like that nature. But just telling people, like when I see a girl, and I'm always genuine. If I see a girl and she has like pretty hair. I really like your hair. We'll be in the elevator. I'm like, oh my God, I like your dog. And Lou's like, you're always giving compliments. I'm like, you just never know who needs to hear it. You don't. And it
Yeah.
really
It's
changed.
free. It's free. Just give love. It's free. I was honestly, I was that person writing speeches on Facebook to people for their birthdays because I just believe in, and maybe it's because I've lost so many people. I just believe that it's important to say good things to people, especially if you're feeling those things. And these are things that you believe, it is good to say it. And I don't know where that came from because I think what happened with my brother, I was very lucky, and I keep saying how lucky I was to have seen him 2 days before he passed away because there was a whole family nonsense about my father's birthday and the date we should have celebrated my father's birthday. It was such a mess. Anyway, and so I went to the house that he was at, and he was just sitting there. Come to think of it, he was in a sweater in the tropics. It's August in Saint Lucia. So now that I think about it, apparently you get very cold when your blood cells are low or your blood count is low. He was sick. He was very sick. And I just remember saying to him, I don't know why I did it, but I just did it in that moment because I was not that person who was that free with like compliments and stuff like that at that time. And I said to him, Junior, don't worry. I know, I remember telling him, I remember, I haven't forgotten. I haven't forgotten that you stood in line, you sent me money at school. I haven't forgotten, Junior. And I remember doing it like this. I haven't forgotten. And I really appreciate you. And I'm really thankful that you stood in line to get my shoes. And I was doing it like this. And he was nodding and he was like, yes. Yes, yes, thank you, yes. And it was weird because he actually did help me get through university at the time. He wasn't like down on his luck like he was when he died. He was a successful lawyer and he was kind of my dad. He was like my stand-in dad where he would like send me money if daddy didn't send me money at school, and he would stand in line at Western Union. He would take time off of his day to go stand in line to send me money and stuff. And then, sit on the phone with me and help me figure out some schoolwork and whatever. And I just said it to him on the Saturday, was it, or the Sunday? It was the Sunday before. And I just said it to him. And ever since then, I said, I'm never missing an opportunity to tell somebody how I feel about them.
Yeah.
Never again. And I do it. I once it comes to me, I do it for that reason. I don't know if it's a me thing, if it's I don't know if it's to make me feel better
Mhm.
or what, but it's just a decision that I have made that I'm going to say how I feel. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah.
Yeah.
Whew.
From a learned experience, you once you've lost somebody, it's like, or maybe you've always done it. You were writing happy birthdays, and it's funny that you talk about the happy birthday speeches because I was the person who I knew it was your birthday, you were special to me. I would always make these brownie cakes for everyone, and I would bring it to
Mhm.
school. Like that was my thing, and I did it for everyone's birthday, and it was just
Wow.
something nice to do. But I loved always going above and beyond. Again, I don't know if this was for them or if it was to make me feel special or to feel good. But yeah, when
Well,
you,
they do say give kindness is for you.
yeah,
It's the same, not that it's entirely selfish in in intention. But kindness is for you because it's just like if you hold on to anger and pain, then you're hurting yourself. So similarly, if you're kind and if you're compassionate, then it
Right.
somehow kind of
Comes
goes
back.
back into,
It makes you feel
yeah,
good, right? I think I saw a video, they
yeah,
said feelings are inbound. So when we think I'm going to be angry, I'm going to be angry at that person for cutting me off, right? But that person's going to drive away and go about their day.
yeah,
Anger is inbound. It's coming back to you. It's like a boomerang, right? So whatever you put out, you're going to get back. So that's why, most really, memorable, profound, Buddha, all they say have kindness in your heart,
yeah,
love and
yeah,
heart, because whatever it is you're feeling towards that person, it's only going to affect you, right? There's people
yes,
who hold on to
yeah,
grudges for years, years and years and years. They hold on to these grudges, and that person that they're holding a grudge towards, right? Let's take my mom, for example. I just saw this in the back, this Morrison sign.
mm-hmm,
My dad never paid child support, not a goddamn penny. Maybe like $100 here or there, but he
mm-hmm,
he fit the description of a deadbeat father. Like he didn't pay anything. So my mom's pissed, all right? My dad loves this sign. He stole it. It's a street sign. It's our last name. He's big into his last name. He's an Irish man. He's from Germany. He's very proud of his last name. And he wanted this his entire life. Calls my mom all the time. Where's the sign? I don't have it. Well, I don't know. I hear about this fucking sign my entire life. The day he dies, my mom's like, it's up in the attic. Go grab it. I'm like, the
no.
pettiness between you two is incredible. And it was
How did she take his death? How did she?
not the best. I think,
Mm,
secretly she was very still much in love with him, but he lost
mm-hmm,
himself. Had it not been for the alcohol, I think I would have still had mom and dad together. But
mm-hmm,
she was like,
mm-hmm,
I would never choose the man that I'm with over my children. I wouldn't. And I think that that is rooted differently because, there are some women, like my dad's current woman that he was with, they had two children and they actually got taken away from them. And she fought for my dad rather than the children. My mom fought
mm-hmm,
for us rather than my dad. But my mom's
mm-hmm,
experience as a child was a lot of bad things happened to her as a child with her and her father. And her mom wasn't there for her. So she was like, this is where that gets passed on. So
mm-hmm,
it's those
mm-hmm.
generational patterns, and it's like
Pattern.
point fingers and say dad shouldn't have got addicted to alcohol, mom should have done this, and but when you strip people of their titles, right, their identities, mom, dad, you're just two, it's a man and a woman trying to do their absolute best.
Just doing what they can with what they know.
They know.
That's it. It sounds like your mom. Funny enough, my mother's thing was education. So she grew up. She didn't have an education past primary school actually, like elementary school. So she always, like she said to me, she just always knew that all her children would be educated. So for her, that was the generational pattern that she needed to break. And that's what she was focused on, and nothing else.
And they're focused on what they're focused on, and sure, they get to the end of their
Yes.
lives and they're like, oh, I regret all those things, but then that's when we come in. You learn, sure, maybe it damaged me a little,
Yeah.
but our damage stems from, childhood, us particularly, right? Or our the
Yeah.
broken side of us. But we don't have to choose to stay broken, right? It's Tony Robbins, I did his seminar yesterday and he talked about, two people. Like you have like Arnold Schwarzenegger and his brother, right? It's like two of the same from the same parent,
Yes.
but came out entirely
Yeah.
different. One was hungry for success and the other
The other was,
on
yeah.
drugs, dying,
Yeah.
and it's just say the same water that boils the egg and the potato, or it softens the potato and hardens the egg. It's the same circumstance.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
three
Yes.
atoms.
Yes.
I'm like,
Yes.
I love that, because I could have definitely gone the other way. But when we look at your
Mhm,
parents, right, it's like your mom's main focus her whole life with her children, where they're going to be educated.
mhm,
That you all
mhm.
are. Well, lawyers just running lumps,
Yeah,
right? All
yeah.
20, 30, 40 of you. And then my stretch was to make sure that she knows that we're there for she was there for her children, which I very much
Mhm,
love and respect. Sure, me and my mom have been very, combative and butting heads my
mhm,
entire life, but when you tell your daughter that you are just like your father, and I know that you hate your father, but
mhm,
now
mhm,
knowing what I know just kind of came to me, maybe like, you know, and this is just assumption, right? You're just like your father wasn't all bad entirely, because
mhm,
there is that deep rooted love that she loved him so
mhm,
much, but her fear was that I was going to turn into the bad part of him. And you know what?
Mhm.
I did for a little bit, but I found my way
Yeah.
back to my initial roots because my mom is who raised me, not my dad. So I eventually
Mm.
went back to my default setting, which is I am love, I am light, I am pure
Mhm.
hearted. But I got lost along the way, as most of us do, whether it's
Mhm.
puberty, a boyfriend,
Mhm.
something
Young
happened,
adulthood. Yeah.
got off
Yeah.
track, and then you have to figure it out, get back on track, but you're no longer that same person that was on that road because you went over here and you were feral for a little and you came back with your new worldly view. And so you're going to be different, and you're going to have to look back and be like, yeah, I did a lot of stupid shit, but at least I found my way back to my, you know, original beliefs that I had when I was like 8, 7, 6, 8, 9, 10,
Mhm.
whatever that
Mhm.
age where I was like, these are my beliefs because I'm a little kid, I'm having fun. Same beliefs, right?
Mhm.
You're still the same person. You've embarked on a different path that has left you a little jagged, a little jaded, a little rough
And
around
you
the.
make decisions along the way, like based on your experiences. Like I remember, like things would happen to me, and I would be like, "Well, going forward, that's how I'm going to deal with this going forward. I'm going to do this going forward with everybody who treats me that way." And then you start to kind of add on all of these like characteristics that are not really you. They're just responses to pain.
Yeah,
And you think you're protecting yourself, but you're not really protecting yourself. You're just kind of hiding.
yeah.
So
Hiding behind
hiding,
a persona.
avoiding, yeah, yes,
Like I
hiding
got
behind
into
the
the
alcohol.
I got into the Harley Quinn era. I thought I was like
Mhm.
badass, Harley Quinn, she's crazy, she's wild. Like that was my persona, but it was just something, and that's
Yeah.
not who I'm actually. Like I'm not some I'm goofy, I'm weird, I'm quirky, I'm just odd. But I leaned behind that because I was like, Harley Quinn's confident, she's crazy, and she doesn't like, you don't see her drink, but I'm assuming she's on some kind of drugs.
Mhm.
I'm like,
Yeah.
gotta be on some
Living on drugs.
pink
That
and blue.
character.
What the hell? You just start hiding behind things, and you start hiding behind so many layers that you're eventually at one point and you're like, what
Who
even
are
is
you
a layer?
even?
Of
Yeah.
who's
Yeah.
actually there? You get so lost in the sauce, you get so lost in the alcohol, and had there
Mhm.
been more mental health, because I don't look at AA as a form of like mental health. I mean, kind of, but back then, like, I don't, it's just,
Hmm.
I don't know. I don't see it as like promoting mental health. I see it as promoting a way to help people for sure, right? But I think in doing that and helping people, right, with AA is believing a part of you is weak. And that's where I
Mhm.
differentiate myself. Like I don't
Mhm.
I'm powerless to alcohol. I think of
Mhm.
alcohol like I think of hot Cheetos or, something else that is bad for cigarettes. I see it as that. I'm like, this is bad. And it was a learned behavior and it was a bad behavior. And I can correct it. But I have to untangle myself from this web of lies that I told myself that alcohol serves me in any way, shape, or form. And as soon as you've done that, you're able to look at alcohol and be like, why would I? I love the reality that I've
Yeah.
created.
Not to knock AA either, but I think AA is like I actually don't even know what it is. Like, do they sit in a circle and they share like their life experiences? Because I remember my brother tried to join one in St. Lucia because one of my uncles was a recovering drug addict who stayed sober his entire life. Unfortunately, died of a heart attack in the end. I guess just was neglecting other aspects of his health, but he stayed sober and he was leading that group. Um, but I remember Junior went drunk to one. He was drunk.
I did the
He
same
was
thing.
so one drunk. He was very drunk.
It's
And he
not
was laughing at everyone in the circle and he was laughing at everybody's stories and being very obnoxious. And I was just like, oh my God, I cannot help you anymore. You know what you're doing. Like, let's go. So I don't know what AA is. I need to I would probably read into. Actually, I have no interest in finding out what AA is because this type of model where there is a community, there is support, there is ongoing information, there is ongoing like just kind of reciprocal sharing of experiences and that kind of group culture, group the words are escaping me now, but I think that's more of something that is more sustainable for people in this generation. Like people who are living in the world now, I think need more of this. Maybe the AA thing was formulated in, I don't know, maybe the 70s or the 60s. I don't know. But I think this is more suitable for like women because AA seems to be AA seems to be stigmatized for people who are like transient, rock bottom, like people who are like we're in the gutter, literally homeless, um, as opposed to not like there's a range of alcoholism, like there's a range,
Yeah.
and I consider myself in the range that people would not notice is an issue. With my brother, people knew there was an issue. He stopped working. He just abandoned everything about his life. He moved in with this like lady who was like 15 years older than he was. He went full circle into a different direction.
Yeah.
But with me, I think I was able to hide it and I was able to appear as though I was a social drinker and I like my bubbly and I like to have a good time.
Yeah.
But I very much did have a problem. So I like that I said did.
Mm-hmm. There it is. There it is. Yep. Yourself now method. And that's the thing to say, hey, it's not all bad. Like I know that
Yeah.
I use it as reference point a lot, but that's just because of the belief system that I don't, and that's my opinion about it. I'm not knocking that it helps people. Absolutely. I know it helps people, but I think that it, does make people's minds
Yeah.
weaker than because you're going from like I want people to graduate out of Sobriety 7. I don't want you to have to live here and go to a meeting. It's nice to just build connections. That's what it really is.
Mhm.
And that was the thing that I liked about AA. It wasn't a circle setting, it was chair settings for us. And I actually really liked my leader. His name was Frank, and he was like this total, gangster from LA, had a top button flannel, the rest open. He came in total just cholo, like so cool. I loved his stories. I loved his, you know, the things that he had to say. And he didn't, say like I'm an alcoholic. Like that wasn't the setting,
Mm.
but
I see.
it was more of like I was court mandated, but the thing that I had a problem with, I was like, everybody here is fucked up clearly. Like I can see it, I can smell it. I know it, and it just felt
Mm.
backwards to me. I'm like, we're supposed to be here working on ourselves, getting better, not doing this again. And then they tell you these horror stories, like if you keep drinking, and they're
Yeah.
but it's not motivating me to be like, what could I be? It's showing me what will happen rather than
Yeah.
let's show, I like to focus on where are you at now and where do you want to be rather than like this is where you're being, that's where you're going to end up. Like it just didn't feel motivating. So all I'm doing is offering a different alternative and it's worked for me. And it may not work for everybody, but I do believe that whatever you believe will work,
Mhm.
but your beliefs have to believe it. I didn't believe that AA was going to help me. So therefore it didn't work for me. Had I had a belief that I was powerless to alcohol and I did want to walk around the rest of my life calling
Then
myself,
it would have worked. Yeah,
would have
then
worked. But I just know
yeah.
myself. Like I'm not gonna label myself for the rest of my life of anything because I know that my belief is that I'm constantly forever and improving and that I'm
Mhm.
evolving. And if you're evolving, you're never gonna identify as the same thing. You identified for a very long time as a social drinker, so that was a part of your identity. So when you try to step away from that, right, even though towards the later, uh, you know, drinking that you
Yeah. It.
wasn't social, but you still were like, no, it's still social. I'm just like,
Mm.
I just don't have I don't have any reason to go out, or maybe you weren't even a social drink anymore, but it just progressively gets worse. And in
It does.
talks
Yeah.
about that in her reading. She started reading like Twilight or, something light romance.
Ah.
And then it got into like 50 Shades of Grey. And then it got into like, like just she's like basically like
Yeah.
pornography in a book, and then she got a Kindle and was hiding it from her family, and then she was getting free stuff on Amazon just to read anything. And then she got to the point where she's not reading the end or the beginning. She's like, if you just crack to the middle, you get that that climax. And she's like, I've realized, I get it. It's a book, so, it's not going to ruin my life. But she understood
Mm.
that addiction, right? The way that our brains are wired. And she talks a lot about that our brains are wired for survival. And our brains are
Mhm.
wired for survival in a scarce setting, right? So
Mhm.
we had to work for it. And that would make our brain and the dopamine, like, feel good, like go hunt, go collect, go.
Mhm. 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 Mhm.
Now, if I want to lie in this bed until 9 o'clock in the morning, till 9 o'clock at night, and order my food from a click of a button, order a car from a click of a button, order a man from a click of a button, I could order it all.
Yeah.
I could order a puppy if
Yes.
I wanted to. I could get a puppy delivered. Oh, you're sad?
Yes.
They have
Yeah.
puppy yoga out here, and I want to go. But anyway. It's
Yeah.
so not, we're not in a scarce world. We're in a very abundant world. And there is a lot of everything.
Mm.
So when you find something that you like, it is very easy to get addicted to it. And especially addicted to something like alcohol, which is ingrained into our society. Everything
Mhm.
that we do
Mhm.
revolved around drinking, right?
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
parties, get-togethers, birthdays, bar mitzvahs, funerals, baby showers, christenings, like it does not matter. People are like, I got the alcohol. I know this looks like,
Yeah.
I know it's Windex, but it's basically alcohol. So,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
like, that's how I see
Yeah.
it. Ethanol is actually
Yeah.
an ingredient that is in cleaning products, and then it is also in our gasoline, which is like, they did a thing. There's like a word I can't pronounce, but it's the fifth ingredient in Lucky Charms, the cereal. And this girl, she filmed the ingredient, then she went to Home Depot and she found the ingredient that was listed. And she's like, look, it's right next to the paint thinners and right next to the. She's like, so why is this in our children's cereal? You're basically
Yes, yes, yes. I know what you're talking about because I think there's some dyes and some ingredients that we're putting in. Well, we get a lot of American products as well, the Caribbean. So, but it's banned in Europe, and they're using it in the products in like somebody was saying to us, like there's some things that are put in the Skittles in the
yeah,
US that are not put in the Skittles in the UK. So why that's okay, I don't know, but it seems like we're okay with putting poison in our body to see how well we hold up. I don't know what the
a
rationale is.
longer shelf life and
Ah,
it's easier to
yeah, yeah, yeah.
produce. So, of course, and this all just
Mm,
circles back to my thinking of like the government that we have, the world that we like, they don't give a shit about us. And if they did, then people would pay more attention to these. But, I'm hoping that the world starts to change around because it's absolutely insane trying to even eat.
mhm.
It's a very high stress.
It is. You have to be very vigilant now that we are so aware of what's in those things, because, as you said, the authorities don't seem to care enough about it. We have to now take it on ourselves to make sure that we're reading labels and not assuming that any of this stuff is edible or should be ingested or fit for human consumption. It is actually quite like
Alarm.
daunting. Yeah. So,
A lot, and then you start getting into your
yeah.
favorite softener. But it's like you go from
Yes.
poisoning
There
your
is
body.
this app. There's this app I need. I wonder if you know about it. It's called
You're
Yazoo.
looking for your
Or,
phone. You're like,
yeah.
I'm on it. I'm on it. Where did I put that damn thing I'm looking for? I just watched that in real time because I do that all the time. I'm like, where's my laptop? Hold on. Just, oh, wait, I'm on it.
Yes. I'm gonna send it to you when we get off the call. You can scan like products around your house to see like what the ingredients are in them. Like it has like ratings of the ingredients and what the ingredients can do to your body, whether they're just hormone disruptors or whatever it is. I find it so useful. But then I started going around the house scanning stuff, and I was like, oh my god, my deodorant
Yeah.
has a high rating for this a hormone disruptor. I can't remember the term, but it's something that
Endocrine
basically,
disruptors.
yes. What's it? What did you say?
Endocrine
Endos.
disruptors.
Yes. So that's something that like your body. I was like, wow, I wonder how much microplastic I have floating around my body. I wonder,
So
you
much.
know, Oh, it's
The
too late for
plastic.
us millennials. Millennials.
One day I came home and I threw away all of our cleaning products. I threw away all of the
Oh,
plastic Tupperware, and Lou was like, "You're throwing away all of our shit." I'm like,
no, it's not worth
it's
it.
all chemicals, so I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm trying to get myself less and less in the system and like more and more into the holistic. Like I just ordered my doTERRA essential oils, which are lab tested and are 100% what they say. They have their own specific number. You start cleaning with baking soda. I ordered a ton of vinegar, and you're supposed to make it smell
Mm-hmm.
good with like the essential oils, and like you're supposed to wash your clothes with that and brush your teeth with like coconut oil, and like just
Wow. Well,
it
girl, I don't know. I was just like, where do I even begin? Because
slow
from
start.
like my hair products, my makeup, like I like as you
This,
can see, I wear red lipstick, I wear like foundation. I went scanning the foundation. The foundation wasn't too bad,
yeah.
but I was like, still, it's not like it didn't come up green and it's on my face. It came up like orange, like, yeah, you might want to not. Yeah. So I'll send you the app and you can see because
Yeah,
I think
I'll
you
have
can
fun
do
with it.
it. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'll be
You.
like, this, no way. But I mean, it's like you can't prevent it all. So rather than overwhelm yourself, like I'm just gonna switch out little things over time.
Yes,
I'm
yes.
not in a blue state. I'm not gonna live forever. I'm gonna do what I can.
Mm,
Otherwise, you overwhelm yourself because then you're just like, I can't eat anything. I can't wear makeup. It's like you just do
yeah.
the first thing to rid from your diet and your lifestyle is obviously alcohol. Like it's going to bring this awareness, and your brain is constantly running. So the
Mm-hmm.
way to silence it isn't alcohol. There are other remedies, but it's learning those remedies and learning, how do I silence my brain?
Mm-hmm.
How do I not be a slave to my mind? And that's what a lot of our society is right now. We're slaves to our minds. Any thought that comes into our head, we're like, yeah, it's a good thought. Should probably act on it. And then it's just
Mm-hmm.
compulsive, you know, just impulse, just acting on impulse. That's where all of my tattoos came from. I was just like, just go. It's a great idea. Like this turtle, I found him on Google. I like have my like the year I was
But
born.
I keep saying they're really nice though.
I like
So
my tattoos.
yeah,
There's no going back on these things. They do not come off.
yeah,
But I
yeah.
remember starting the color, and I was like, eventually I'll
Mm-hmm.
get the color. And I just remember going in so wasted and was like, don't even worry about the color. Like it's fine.
Mm.
Like I went in there like we're coloring this, and then I just like got so drunk that I was like, it's fine. Like because my friend hit me up like, hey, we're going out to get drinks, and I was already wasted in the chair, and I was like, I'm done. I'm done. And then I went out to get drinks. My arm's bleeding. He's like, just be careful. Like, don't drink anymore. I'm like, yeah, 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 yeah. I'm like,
Yeah, 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 yeah,
be
yeah.
careful. I was like, I had a death wish, clearly, but it's, survival of the fittest. I have no idea. I question that all the time. I'm like, how did I survive all of those years? Because I did very dangerous, very stupid things. And I do believe, whatever your higher power is out there, whoever's listening, I do believe that there's a reason for everything. And I feel like there's a
Mm-hmm.
reason that I'm still here, whether it's to continue
Mm-hmm.
my father's legacy and to
Mm-hmm.
help other women, to help other people, to just
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Someone asked me the other day, what's your purpose? And I'm like, I believe our purposes change over time. And to give you
Mm-hmm.
overview of what my purpose was of my life, I feel I can only tell at the end. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I,
Yes, I do know what you mean. Oh my God. Like you never, I do know exactly what you mean. And that is so profound because we keep searching for this answer that may never come until the very end.
like,
It's like yeah, you
what
will
do you
just
think your purpose
know.
is now? To lead?
I cannot say that I know specifically what I'm doing here, but it will all kind of come together in the end, I believe. Even like it doesn't even matter the circumstances under which you pass away. I think dying is such a spiritual experience. I think there's so much more to death and life than we have even wrapped our minds around as human beings. And this podcast that this thing with Mel Robbins, who came across, like she had this thing where it was called synchronicity.
Yeah.
where there's like actually a scientific explanation for like, you know, I definitely think that there is so much more to life and death. Like, I don't think that my brother is just nowhere. I don't think he's in the clouds. I don't know where heaven is. I don't know if there's a realm, it's just because they say you cannot destroy energy
Yeah.
and we're all energy. So I don't know where his energy is. I don't know. So, I mean, I still cry when I talk about him. I still feel it's almost like I spoke to him yesterday sometimes. So that means something, and it's like, you know, I don't know. We'll see.
We'll see at the end
We'll
because
see.
at the end of my dad's life, I gave his life purpose and meaning to myself.
Yeah.
Nobody could tell another person what your meaning is. Your
Yes. Yes.
and I was like,
Yes.
I believe that my father was here to bring children into this world because he, and to instill good values, by showing, the way that he lived his life. But I believe his sacrifice was to save us all, and that's
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
they say in Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning that if we can make meaning out of life and living, then we can make meaning out of suffering and in death. Feel that
Mm-hmm.
everything does happen for a reason, and you talked about that energy, how it can't be destroyed. I do believe when I start to cry or I tear up thinking back to how it must have felt for him, because I know
Mm-hmm.
that he had to have suffered some degree, right? It's like the way that he died, where they found him, all of those things are so relevant. And I think back to that, and when I do start to cry, I think today I'm more exerted. I'm just like, I feel, not exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there's no room for me to even cry. I'm not in that I'm not in that mindset, and or that emotional area. But I feel like it's like when you watch the movie Ghost with Patrick Swayze and how she's like ditto and she can't hear him, she can't see him, but there's that mediator. I think it's Whoopi.
Mm-hmm.
That's how
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
feel. I'm like, I know he's here, but then that would mean that
Mm-hmm.
he's in the in between. He's in like purgatory. Like he's not yet in heaven, wherever heaven is. But selfishly, part of me was like, I wish that he's still here, but maybe he's over there, wherever there is. You don't know really much of anything. And I think what messes us up.
We're trying to understand it with our human brains, like, because we've been told time is linear, so it's, time, the day starts at midnight and ends at, like, I've watched documentaries and theories that we're existing in there's parallel universes existing all at the same time, and time is actually a fallacy. And there are so many things that we have been taught that we're trying to measure everything inside this little box of information that we have.
Right?
And so, maybe they're around but they're not around. It's like, I don't know what it is, but we know that they're with us somehow.
Yeah.
And that's all we probably need to know, is that their hair. I don't think they're watching us in a room, take a shower, watch TV, but I think they're
What's up, Dad?
around.
Even my pits, can you leave me alone? Yeah. How annoying would that be? And they're just, I mean, it would be
Yeah.
so. That's why, that day you messaged me, or, I told you about the death certificate and I was sad,
Yeah.
but I was like, I know one day I'll see him again. That's my
Mhm.
belief because I like what you just said, which is we use our human brains trying to make sense of something that we have
Mhm.
no idea. I think it's more
Yeah.
spiritual, it's more energy, it's bigger than
Yeah.
any of us. And it's a very
Yeah.
experience to come to that realization that a wise man once, what is it? Like a wise man knows that he knows nothing or something
And
like that.
nothing at all. He knows
I don't know
nothing.
shit.
You don't know
I
anything, and
only
you
know
think and
what
you
I know.
think you know so much. And it's like, there was a stage in my life, I remember it was my 20s, where I really thought I had arrived. Like, I am mid 20s, I'm in my late 20s. I used to tell people I'm in my late 20s. Wow. You don't know anything. Wait till the 30s come around and you're like, what the fuck?
Oh, you're making
I
me
don't know
excited.
anything. No, you will, you see, the thing with you is you are doing this early in your journey. Like you're doing this huge turnaround in your journey, but you will continue to elevate. I'm not saying that,
Yeah.
there will not be things that you will encounter and you will continue to grow, but at least you're on this journey of self-discovery, awareness, and truth. Like I didn't come into that kind of question until maybe about maybe 35. I was like, am I doing this right? Like, am I doing this okay? Like, am I lost? Where am I? Literally, it was about 35, 36. And that was when, like, I was going through the separation with Philbert, and then, the thing. And then, yeah, and I was like, yeah, something's not right. Something's not right. I'm not in the right place. So I can say you've saved yourself maybe that kind of like, I'm lost. You save some time with that one. Um, but there's always going to be something.
Yep.
There's always going to be something. So,
Prepared that something will happen,
yeah,
but excited
yes,
for what the future
yes,
with the
yes,
mindset that I'm working on building. But I do believe
yeah.
I don't know anything. But it's also exciting, they have I don't know if it's a philosophy, it's something, it's Japanese. It's called Shoshin, which basically means beginner's mind, to have a mind as of a sponge like a kid and to learn.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I
Mm-hmm.
really appreciate the community because I feel like when I hear you all speak or talk, like I'm constantly learning,
Learning.
writing.
Yeah.
I'm like, I get to share the things that I
Same.
know, and it's very exciting for me. And I love making slides, and I love presenting. I love to be a leader. I love that. But I
Mm-hmm.
also know that I don't know everything, and I'm okay with that. Like, there's no ego involved in here. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
okay with not knowing everything. I'm actually very open to learning more and just the importance of learning and learning
Mm-hmm.
something that actually excites you because then it gives you that hunger. Tony Robbins was talking about that yesterday, how, a lot of people say like, "Oh, I'm tired because I haven't, had enough sleep." He's like, "But you have the same amount of sleep prior to like going to the airport at 4 a.m., but you'll be excited, you'll be awake because you're going to a
True. True. Good
that
point.
energy. It's not the I had enough sleep or didn't have enough sleep. It's your energy. It's that hunger, that excitement. And he's like, "Oh, well, people say I don't have any food in me. Like I have no energy." He's like, "Well, actually eating food, it takes so much energy to digest it.
Uh-huh.
You
Uh-huh.
losing energy. That's why after your Thanksgiving, right, you eat all that food, you're like, I'll never eat again. You take a nap." He's like, that is not your energy source. Your energy source is your drive, is your hunger, is that oh, I'm doing something. So that's why when you are learning about something, I find it more important to be learning about something that excites me. I've had this fun book that I ordered for like weeks now, and I
Yeah.
myself reading the educational books. I am not reading the fun book because I'm like, my hunger is
Uh,
education, not comfort. If I wanted comfort, I'd watch a show, you know?
yeah.
I
Yeah.
want to read to learn. That's what is exciting me.
You're in your curiosity era, your information finding era. Just go with it. Just
Learn all
flow
you
with it.
will come
Yeah.
and Tony Robbins said
Yeah.
that too. He's like winter, spring, fall, summer, each of those
Yes.
are
Yes.
and same with your life. There's a season where you're
Yeah.
head down, it's gonna be hard, you're gonna be questioning what the fuck. And then there'll be
Yeah.
time and that's
Yep.
when
Yep.
you see everything blossom and bloom that you planted in summer or whatever. It's like and the way that he illustrated that was beautiful. And I went into Lou's room. I'm like, I want to speak like Tony Robbins. I want to speak in a profound way. And he's like, give it time, keep practicing. He's like, you make me proud every day. He's like, you're doing incredible. He's like, Tony Robbins has been doing this for 48 years. He's like, you're not gonna be
And
there.
this is the thing. We have to give ourselves, this is so important what Lou has said to you. It's like we see this finished product of a person or this like seasoned product of a person, and it's like we're comparing ourselves to this person, but this person had a journey, and the only difference is that time. That's it. Like if you were to, because I see all of that in you. I mean, I actually think you would be a much better speaker than Tony Robbins. I like him, but he doesn't really hold my attention. I'll be honest. He has a nice big voice, but he doesn't really hold my attention. Mel Robbins, there's something about Mel Robbins who she does hold my attention,
Funny,
and
Tony
she gets
Robbins.
yeah, yeah, the Robbins.
Robbins.
The one that twins. The one that twins. But they that's yeah, that's a coincidence. But she like when I came across her, I don't know what it was about her. I think it was just that she came off very authentic, very self-searching. Like she was just kind of discovering things along with us. And I also, when I found out that she had been a lawyer, I was like, wow, that is, that makes sense to me that she would leave the profession and do something more meaningful that she found was more meaningful. So what I'm saying, you will find your people. You will find just as you are. Of course, you're going to grow. Whatever it is that you feel like you want to improve on, you will, whatever that might be. But then I found you and you found me just as you are. So it's like you're fine as you are right now. You know what I mean? Like you're perfect. Like that's I so as soon as I saw you, and I keep saying this over and over, there was just something about you, and it just has to be that thing. And it's what you will have when you know. So just keep being you. Just do just do you and Mango
Me
and
and
Paris.
Harrison here. She takes my shoes with me. Yeah, I know it's a time thing,
Yeah,
and ironically enough, tonight's slides are about self-acceptance is not, you know, it's not complacency. It's just accepting yourself where you're at in your journey,
yeah,
knowing that you have
yeah,
so much ambition to one day be somewhere entirely different and to grow with yourself, but to accept yourself
yes,
and
yes,
grow with
yes,
yourself, and he always
yeah,
puts it into perspective. I go out there and I just brain dump the things that are in my head and my thoughts. I'm like, I want to be like Tony Robbins, but you. And he's like, and that's the best
yeah,
part of you. And he always
yes,
recenters me, and it's great, because
yeah.
it's it's nice to have a partner who sees the things that sometimes it's hard for you to see because you're so in it. But he's like, just give what you're doing 5 years. He's like, I don't doubt for 1 second you're gonna be speaking on stage or helping.
Neither do I. Neither do I. I don't doubt it for a second.
Excited.
There's no doubt in my mind. Yeah,
Just like
yeah,
1 month into 2025, I'm doing the 5K. I've got the sobriety sleepover summer thing happening. I'm
yeah,
going after my goals hungry, and I feel the difference. They say I sent you that video. It was like mashika mashiga, whatever. Like do something big every year.
yes, yes,
Whatever
yes,
that
yes.
word was. And 2023 was where I got sober. That was my main focus. In
That was your
2024,
thing. Yeah,
was growing sobriety 7, focusing
yes.
coaching and learning and getting people in. And now I feel like 2025 is just like a refocus on yourself, recenter. And it's nice to have that in mind. Like what's gonna be, my thing at the end of the year. I'm only telling you what 2023 was and 2024 is at the end. I'm not telling you what it was in the beginning. My
It,
hopes for 2025 is that I focus on myself and I go after my goals and I stay hungry. But I'll tell you in 2026 if that was it or not. We
it's
don't know.
it's just like what we said about coming to the end of your life and then kind
Purpose.
of knowing what your purpose is. So just go through it, do every day, day by day, and yeah, that's it.
And when you think
Yeah.
that your life is like in total shambles and that's gonna last forever, remind yourself of the seasons. Winter
Yeah.
only lasts winter, and then it's
Yes.
summer,
It's
and
God.
it's gonna
Yeah.
be the next summer.
Yeah.
You're gonna have a break. People think that their suffering is forever, but it's not.
Yeah.
You feel that you're, constantly suffering. Look at your choices. Look at your decisions.
Mm-hmm,
And then
mm-hmm,
reflect and be like, am
mm-hmm,
I still miserable, or is it because I'm inflicting this misery by not
mm-hmm,
about it?
mm-hmm, 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 mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. If it feels like it's forever, it's 12 months out of the year, then it could be something that you're doing to yourself
Yeah,
as opposed to just kind of you going through the processes of life.
yeah. Like,
Yeah,
where's your focus at? Is it on everything that's
yeah.
bad? I mean, I could focus on things that aren't right now. Like I told on the slides, I was like, my, Lou's brother is living on our couch for over a year now. Ideal?
Mm-hmm,
No, but we're building something. It's gonna be messy. I'm not
mm-hmm,
married. have kids. I'm not engaged. I don't have any of the things that society tells you you should have by 30, but that's okay. I'm accepting where it is I'm at, and when it happens for me, it's going to happen. It's going to be beautiful. But when you stress it and focus on it, I'm not married, I'm not engaged, I'm not that, I'm not, it's like, okay,
Mhm.
and you're missing out on all the really other cool stuff that's happening for you right now. Maybe you
Mhm.
don't have kids or are married because Lou needs to focus on his growth and I need to focus on
Mhm.
my growth, and this is exactly where we're supposed to be. Tony
Mhm.
Robbins had a
Mhm.
kid 4 years ago. Sage was 45 years old. So
Wow.
I have time. I don't
Wow.
know what stem
Yeah,
cells
you
are.
have time. You have
So
time. I had one of my friends had a baby at 42.
yeah, I
She
have so much
she she has
time.
a 3 year. How old is the baby now? She's like 2.5. Yeah, because she's 44 now, so she has a toddler at 44. It's just
Yeah,
it's not it's that is stuff that society imposed on you. So you have to make sure that what you perceive as like negative things in your life is actually what you perceive as negative stuff, because I don't see those things as negative. Like the marriage thing is like,
yeah.
I don't, yeah.
Like I
I
feel
could
like
I
I'm
could
married to Lou. I know it's different when you go through holy matrimony and you make that commitment and yada 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 yada, but I want what I want when we want it, and I've never pressured him because I'm like, when he's ready, he'll know. I know that I'm ready,
yeah.
or I think that I'm ready, but I'm like, I won't be ready until the both of us are ready. I don't want to feel like I
Yes.
have to drag him with me.
Yes. Yes.
I
Yes.
want
Yes.
us,
Yes.
we are a team, we're a united front, and everything that we do is not to push one or the other unless it's to push us towards our purpose and our fullest potential, And I don't think
Mm-hmm.
pushing marriage is necessary because
No, I
we're very
don't think
happy,
so either.
love each other so much, and we've been together for almost, it'll be 5 years this year, which is insane.
Yeah.
Feels
Look
like
at I
15.
hate I hate to compare our lives to people like celebrities, but Rihanna and ASAP Rocky are not married, and they have 2 kids. And Rihanna is so unapologetic about the fact that she calls him her baby daddy. She's like, "Ah, my baby daddy," and they joke about it. And like, you see the comments, "Oh my God, you could have done better," blah blah blah, and she don't care. This is her life. She don't care. When I look at Rihanna, I'm like, this is a girl that she is marching to the beat of her own drum. She
Yep.
does not care. She hasn't dropped an album since God knows when. Everybody's like, drop the album. She's not doing it. She's selling panties and makeup now. Get with the program.
Yeah.
And that's it. And
Gone.
that's why I love her so much, because she's from Barbados, so she's Caribbean, and every now and then she breaks out into her accent, and I'm like, that's a Caribbean girl. And she's so different to Beyonce, because Beyonce is very curated and very controlled. Like Beyonce is like AI.
Yeah.
And it's like after a while it's hard to relate to Beyonce. Like, we get it, you're perfect. Yeah. When the skeletons start coming out.
Yeah.
But just live your life. And the coincidence that it's Rihanna's song, just live your life and just
Hmm.
live your life on your own terms, to what's inside of here, what feels good to you inside of here, it's inside of here. So yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
best thing you could have
Yeah.
said. Now, do it. Own who you are. It's so hard in this,
Yeah.
especially with the profession that you have, right? Like lawyers are known for being like, like together.
Yeah.
No red lipstick. No other. Why do you always
Yes.
why do you always
No, that's
laugh?
exactly why I do it, actually, because it's such a bland and just kind of restrictive. Now, less now than it was, like, many years ago. When I just came out, it was still very, like, lawyers didn't jump carnival and go out in the streets. Like, you could get into trouble if you did something like that. Like, my brother did actually get into trouble for jumping carnival in the 90s, participating in like Mardi Gras type of thing. And now, it's not really like, the social norms around it are a little bit more relaxed, but still there is the stigma. Oh, you don't behave like a lawyer. What does a lawyer behave like? As far as
Yeah.
I know, alcoholism is rampant in the legal profession. So
Well, That's the thing. It's like, how does this particular person act? It's like, that's the thing. It's an act. It's like, how does a lawyer present themselves? Why do you have to be dead inside to be a lawyer? Why do you have to, because I think the same thing
No
to myself when I'm
clue.
singing in a car and I'm dancing and I'm being who I want to be. I'm like, oh, this isn't a professional coach. But then I think to myself, like, what the heck?
I
I'm
love that. That's what I love the most about you, actually. It's just like every time I click on your story, I feel happy or I feel better. I feel, uplifted. So don't change anything. Don't change nothing. Just
nothing, nothing, girl. Be as you are. Come to me as you are. And that's the thing that I love so much about you, is you have such a big personality. You have so many stories. You have so much color and life to you.
boy.
That's what I hope that, you share that part of yourself with more people because, you truly are incredible. Like you have this,
I'm trying. I believe me that I'm trying. I know I
I know you
disappear
are.
sometimes. I know I disappear sometimes. I saw that thing about Sagittarius disappearing. I'm like, poor Cheyenne. She don't know where I am. She don't know what I'm doing.
Are you alive?
I
Are you
could be
dead? Are you
Batman.
awake? Or a
I
heart?
could be Batman.
Are you know, but I'm the most patient and
I
understanding
know.
and empathetic person you'll ever meet because I genuinely care about people. And
Yeah.
people, they I feel like they've lost that gift. And I believe that it is a gift to actually care, because my heart's been stomped and trampled on a billion times, but I'm a big believer that you can't let the world harden your heart, that you have to keep
Yeah.
going to fight your fight because you're going to run into people like you or Jen or Steph
And
or
then you miss out, right? Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like you
Yeah.
might give 10 people a chance and 8 of those people, screw you over, but that still leaves you like 2 really great friends that you made, and this I'm speaking
Yeah.
on specifics here. Like this has happened to me in this journey. Like I've gotten, my heart stomped on. I've gotten screwed over. I've
Mm,
the risk you run by putting yourself out there in a personal way. And that's okay. I'd rather be an open book and say, this is who I am. Go ahead, try to hurt me, than to pretend to be somebody I'm not and feel even more hurt that they don't like the person that I've been pretending to be so they like me,
yeah.
Rather than
Yeah.
don't like
Yeah.
me because I'm being 100% me. I'm like, well, then I'm just not your cup of tea. And that's an easier pill to
And
swallow.
that's fine. Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right,
That's fine. Just move on.
you don't like Tony. I love Tony, right? It's like not
Yeah.
there's different messengers for people to receive it, and everybody's going to
Yes.
take a different
Yes.
liking that you say. Some people may not like even just the sound of my voice. Some people may not like what I say. Some people may not like what
Mm,
I do, right? But then there are other people who love what I like, say, do, how I act, and that's okay, because to be
yeah.
liked by everyone, you're liked by no one. Is that the saying?
If you stand for
Stand for nothing,
nothing, you fall
you'll
for
fall for it.
everything.
Yeah.
Oh, so yeah, we
Telling you.
okay.
We're
Mm.
like freaking fortune cookies, you and I. We could just spit them out. What's the next fortune cookie? We got
A
it.
Bob
I
Marley reggae song. We could
box of
make a Bob
chocolates.
Marley. We we could make a reggae song now. At this point, we have enough
It
lines.
was fun dancing to the reggae music, whatever you had on. It was like MB something. I was dancing in the car. I was like, I like this. This is carnival
Yeah.
music.
Yes. Oh yes. Yeah.
It was great.
Well,
Well, well. Yep. I think that's
you have a call
great.
at 8, right?
Yep, I have a
So
call at 8. This is a good hour
yeah.
for 50-minute podcast. I knew we would go.
Yeah.
That's just what we do.
Yeah.
That's just what we just stay talking. And I'm here for it because I think that there's a lot of value and a lot of perspective. And that's the one thing that I want to, when I have podcasts, I want to offer a different perspective. And I feel like you have so many different perspectives because you've
Oh,
lived
that's good.
such a
Boy, oh
great
boy.
life, even though it's
Interesting life.
challenging, but it's great. And at the
Mm.
end of your life, you're going to look back and you'll be able to have said, and this is what it was all for.
4. Mm-hmm.
Who knows
Yeah.
what it's for? Because
Mm.
honestly, I can't tell you the end of my life, but I'm hoping it's many, many, many years from now, and we both live a very healthy and long life, and
Me
we live
too.
in sobriety, and never touch a sip of alcohol ever again, and just be
Yeah.
all that we can be. But
Yeah. Me too.
thank you for being
Yeah.
on this podcast today. I've had fun.
You're welcome. Me too. It was great to see you.
So
I'll be around.
I
You'll
know
see
you'll
me
be
on
around. I know where to find you. I can
yeah,
easily find you, and if I
the
really want
bat
to respond,
signal.
I would
Just
just blow you up. I'd be like,
just put out the bat. Just put the bat signal out. The bat signal. Anyway. All
all right. Well,
right,
great
Cheyenne.
podcast. Thank you for being here. And I know I'll
No
be seeing you
problem.
soon.
Yes. All righty. Take care.
Gina.
Have a good weekend. Bye bye.